Step into the enchanting world of Uro Bravo Farm, where Leticia Martinez arrives seeking only employment but discovers an unexpected connection with the wealthy and enigmatic Enrico Duarte. This captivating tale explores how true love transcends social boundaries and proves that the most valuable treasures cannot be measured in gold. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. The morning sun beat down on Leticia's back as she walked up the long dirt driveway to Uro Bravo Farm. Her simple cotton dress clung to her in the heat, and she wiped her brow with the back of her hand. The grand white farmhouse loomed ahead, its windows gleaming like watchful eyes. At 27, Leticia Martinez had already lived several lifetimes of hardship. She clutched her worn leather purse that held a simple resume, a patchwork of laundry jobs, kitchen work, and cleaning positions. None had lasted long enough to build a future, but each had taught her something about survival. "This is just another job," she whispered to herself. "Just another house to clean." But this was far from just another house. The sprawling estate of Uro Bravo Farm was known throughout the county as the jewel of the valley. Its vineyards stretched across rolling hills, its cattle grazed on lush pastures, and at its heart stood the magnificent main house, a place Leticia had only seen in magazine photos. The advertisement had been simple. Housekeeper needed urgently. Full-time live-in position. Discretion required. The pay listed was twice what she'd ever made, enough to help her younger brothers Miguel and Rafael with college, enough perhaps to finally stop running. As she reached the front entrance, her courage faltered. The massive oak door seemed to mock her simple origins. She hesitated, then remembered her mother's words from long ago. "We may be poor, Leticia, but we walk through the front door with our heads high." Instead, she circled around to the back. Service workers didn't use the front entrance. She knew that much. The kitchen door was propped open to catch the breeze. Leticia knocked gently on the frame. "Hello?" she called. "I'm here about the housekeeper position." A tall woman with steel-gray hair turned from the stove. "You must be Miss Martinez. I'm Mrs. Cooper, the cook." Her eyes swept over Leticia, assessing. "You're younger than I expected." "I've been working since I was 14, Leticia replied, her chin lifting slightly. "When my mother died, I raised my brothers. I know how to work hard." Mrs. Cooper's expression softened. "Well, that's something, at least. Come in, come in. Mr. Duarte will want to interview you himself." Leticia's eyes widened. "The owner? I thought I'd be meeting with a house manager or..." "Mr. Duarte handles everything personally. Doesn't trust many people." Mrs. Cooper lowered her voice. "Can't blame him with all the snakes that have tried to slither into his life." As Mrs. Cooper led her through the gleaming kitchen and down a hallway lined with photographs of sprawling vineyards, Leticia tried to calm her racing heart. She needed this job desperately. The brothers' tuition was due, and their tiny apartments. Rent had just increased again. "Wait here," Mrs. Cooper said, gesturing to a chair outside a heavy wooden door. "And remember, be honest with him. Mr. Duarte can smell a lie a mile away." Left alone, Leticia smoothed her simple dress and wished she'd had something better to wear. Her resume felt flimsy in her hands, a paper-thin testament to a life of struggle. The door swung open, and Leticia rose quickly to her feet. "Miss Martinez, come in." The man who stood before her wasn't what she expected. Enrico Duarte was younger than she'd imagined, perhaps 30, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and intense eyes that seemed to look straight through her. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a button-down shirt rolled at the sleeves. Nothing about him screamed wealth except perhaps the quiet confidence in his posture. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Duarte," she said, extending her hand. He looked surprised at the gesture but shook it firmly. "Please sit." His office was surprisingly modest, bookshelves lined with well-read volumes, a desk cluttered with papers, and large windows overlooking the vineyards. No gold fixtures, no ostentatious displays of wealth. "Your resume," he said, glancing at the paper she handed him. "It's brief, but honest," she replied. "Every job is there, even the ones that lasted only a month." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Why didn't they last?" Leticia took a deep breath. The first one, the hotel, closed down. The restaurant, the owner's son wouldn't leave me alone. The Bailey household moved to Europe. She met his gaze directly. I've never been fired, Mr. Duarte. I show up on time, I work hard, and I mind my own business. And your family, he asked. My parents are gone. I have 2 younger brothers in college. I help with their expenses. Henrico nodded slowly, then set down her resume. This position is unusual, Miss Martinez. I value my privacy above all else. The person who works here will see and hear things that must remain within these walls. I'm not interested in gossip, Mr. Duarte, she said simply. I'm interested in doing my job and being paid fairly for it. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, or approval. The work is demanding, he continued. I entertain business associates occasionally. The house must be immaculate. You would have your own quarters in the East Wing. I understand. And you would be the only house staff besides Mrs. Cooper. I don't like having too many people around. Letitia nodded. May I ask why? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. Because people always want something, Miss Martinez. They smile and compliment and work their way into your life. And eventually the bill comes due. He turned back to her. Everyone has a price. Not everyone, she said quietly. He studied her for a long moment. We'll see. He named a salary that made her eyes widen. You'll have Sundays off unless there's an event. Is that acceptable? Letitia couldn't believe her luck. That amount would cover her brother's tuition and her rent, with enough left over to start a small savings account. Yes, she managed. That's very generous. It's fair pay for hard work, he corrected. When can you start? Tomorrow, she said without hesitation. Then the job is yours. He extended his hand again. Welcome to Uro Bravo, Miss Martinez. His palm was warm against hers, calloused in places, not the soft hands she'd expected from a wealthy man. When their eyes met, something passed between them, quick as lightning. She pulled her hand away first. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Duarte. I won't let you down. See that you don't. His tone was businesslike again. Mrs. Cooper will show you to your quarters and explain your duties. As Letitia followed Mrs. Cooper through the grand house, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something beyond securing a much-needed job. He's not what I expected, she confessed to Mrs. Cooper. The older woman smiled knowingly. Few people see the real Henrico Duarte. They see the money, the land, the name, but not the man. She paused outside a door. He's been hurt before, badly. Makes him keep everyone at arm's length. That's not my business, Letitia said quickly. No, Mrs. Cooper agreed, but you'll be living under the same roof. Just be careful. Not with your work, with your heart. Before Letitia could respond, Mrs. Cooper pushed open the door to reveal a beautiful bedroom with its own sitting area and bathroom. These are your quarters. Take today to get settled. I'll explain your duties over dinner. Left alone, Letitia sat on the edge of the bed, softer than any she'd ever slept on, and tried to process the whirlwind of the day. The job seemed too good to be true. And Henrico Duarte was nothing like the arrogant rich man she'd expected. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her simple clothes in the spacious closet where they looked lost and out of place. On the nightstand, she placed her most treasured possession, a photo of her mother smiling with young Letitia and her brothers. I did it, Mama, she whispered. I found a good job, a safe place. She didn't know then how much this house and its mysterious owner would change her life. Over the next few weeks, Letitia fell into a routine. She rose before dawn, prepared the house for the day, and worked methodically through her duties. Henrico was often gone during daylight hours, attending to his business interests, which suited her fine. When he was home, they maintained a polite distance, but she noticed things. How he preferred his coffee black but would sometimes add cinnamon when stressed. How he read for hours in the library, always returning books to their exact spots. How, despite his wealth, he lived simply without the extravagant parties or displays she'd expected. One evening, as she dusted the library shelves, he entered unexpectedly. I'm sorry, she said, stepping back. I can come back later. No need. He selected a book and settled into a leather chair. You're not disturbing me. Letitia continued her work, aware of his presence, the only sound the gentle swish of her dustcloth and the occasional turn of a page. For some reason, the silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. You sing while you work, he said suddenly. Heat rushed to her face. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Don't apologize, he interrupted. It's nice. This house has been quiet for too long. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded and returned to her dusting. What languages do you speak, Miss Martinez? He asked after a moment. English and Spanish, she replied. My mother insisted we maintain our heritage. She was wise. He hesitated. I hear you speaking to your brothers in Spanish on the phone. Sometimes. They're in college? Letitia was surprised he'd noticed. Yes. Miguel is studying engineering, and Rafael wants to be a doctor. You must be very proud. I am, she smiled genuinely. They're smart boys. They'll have opportunities I never did. Henrico studied her. And what would you do if you had the opportunity? The question caught her off guard. No one had asked about her dreams in a very long time. I'd study literature, she admitted. I've always loved books, but dreams don't pay bills, Mr. Duarte. He nodded thoughtfully but said no more. The conversation was over as quickly as it had begun. The next day, Letitia found a stack of books on her bed, classics she'd mentioned in passing. No note, no explanation. Just the books, waiting for her like old friends. She held them to her chest, uncertain what to make of the gesture. Was it simply a kind act from an employer, or something more? That night at dinner, which she ate in the kitchen with Mrs. Cooper after serving Henrico in the dining room, she mentioned the books. He hasn't loaned those to anyone, Mrs. Cooper said, eyebrows raised. Not even his sister, Isabella, and she's been trying to get her hands on his first edition Dickens for years. I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, Letitia said quickly. He probably has too many books. Mrs. Cooper just smiled knowingly and changed the subject. A week later, as Letitia was washing windows in the east parlor, singing softly to herself, she didn't hear Henrico enter. That song, he said, startling her. What is it? Just an old lullaby my mother used to sing, she explained, her cheeks warming. I didn't hear you come in. I'd like to offer you a raise, he said abruptly. Letitia blinked in surprise. But I've only been here a month, Mr. Duarte, and in that month, the house has never run more smoothly. He cleared his throat. I'd also like you to manage some small events I'm planning. It would mean additional responsibilities. And additional pay, she asked, immediately embarrassed by her directness. To her surprise, he smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face. Yes, Miss Martinez, considerably more pay. Then I accept, thank you. He nodded and turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. There's no need for such formality when it's just the two of us. You may call me Henrico. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Letitia with a spray bottle in one hand and a strange flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the promised raise. Just another job, she reminded herself firmly. Just another house to clean. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Not anymore. 2 months into her employment at Uro Bravo, Letitia had transformed not just the house, but its atmosphere. Flowers appeared in vases that had sat empty for years. Rooms closed off for too long now breathed with fresh air and sunlight. Even Mrs. Cooper commented on the change. This place hasn't felt like a home since Mr. Duarte's mother passed, the cook said one morning as they prepared breakfast. You've brought life back to these walls, Letitia smiled but shook her head. I'm just doing my job. Is that what you call spending your day off replanting his mother's rose garden? Mrs. Cooper raised an eyebrow. Jobs don't make people smile the way you do when he walks into a room. That's not... I don't... Letitia fumbled for words, her cheeks burning. Don't worry, dear. Your secret's safe with me. Mrs. Cooper patted her hand. Just be careful. The heart doesn't know about bank accounts, but the world sure does. Letitia wanted to protest, to deny that anything was happening, but she couldn't lie to herself anymore. Something had changed between her and Henrico. Their conversations had grown longer, more personal. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice, and sometimes she'd let herself watch him too. That afternoon, as she arranged flowers in the front hall, Henrico appeared at her side. "Those are beautiful," he said. "They're from your mother's garden," Letitia replied. "Mrs. Cooper told me they were her favorites." Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, perhaps, or gratitude. "She would have liked you, I think." "Tell me about her," Letitia said, surprising herself with her boldness. Henrico was quiet for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She was kind, strong. She saw beauty in simple things." He touched a petal gently. "She married my father for love, not money. He was nothing but a vineyard worker then." "What happened to her?" "Cancer, when I was 16. His voice grew, distant. "My father changed after she died. Started chasing money, status, acting as if those things could fill the hole she left. By the time he died 3 years ago, I barely recognized him." "I'm sorry," Letitia said softly. "What about your mother?" he asked. Letitia smiled sadly. "She was everything. Came to this country alone at 18, worked 3 jobs to give us a better life. After she got sick, I dropped out of school to care for her and my brothers. You've sacrificed a lot for your family. Wouldn't you for someone you loved?" she asked. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Henrico stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. The front door burst open, shattering the moment. "Henrico, why didn't you tell me you were hosting a dinner party next week?" "I had to hear it from Caroline Peterson at the club." The woman who stormed in was strikingly beautiful, with the same dark hair and eyes as Henrico, though hers were sharp with annoyance. She wore an expensive dress and jewelry that caught the light as she moved. "Isabella," Henrico said, stepping back from Letitia. "I wasn't expecting you." Clearly. Isabella's gaze swept over Letitia dismissively. "Who is this?" "Letitia Martinez, my housekeeper," Henrico replied, his voice suddenly formal. "Letitia, this is my sister, Isabella." "It's nice to meet you, Ms. Duarte," Letitia said politely. Isabella barely nodded before turning back to her brother. "We need to talk about the guest list for this dinner. The Prestons must be invited. Their daughter just returned from Europe. And you know how long I've been trying to arrange a meeting between you two." "Isabella," Henrico warned. "Don't Isabella me. You're 30 years old, Henrico. It's time you settled down with someone appropriate." She lowered her voice, though not enough. "Someone from our circle." Letitia felt her cheeks burn. "Excuse me," she murmured. "I should check on lunch." She retreated to the kitchen, her heart pounding. Mrs. Cooper took one look at her face and sighed. "I see you've met the charming Isabella. She wants him to meet some woman from Europe," Letitia said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Someone appropriate," Mrs. Cooper snorted. "She's been parading eligible society girls in front of him for years. He's never shown interest in a single one." She patted Letitia's shoulder. "Don't let her get to you. She's all bark and designer." Bite. But the encounter had shaken Letitia more than she wanted to admit. It was a harsh reminder of the gulf between her world and Henrico's, a reality she'd somehow forgotten in the quiet moments they'd shared. Later that evening, as she prepared to serve dinner for Henrico and his sister, she overheard their conversation. Drifting from the dining room, "She's just a housekeeper, Hen," Isabella was saying. "Don't tell me you're falling for the help. It's such a cliché." "You don't know what you're talking about." Henrico's voice was cold. "I know that look. I saw the way you were standing with her." Isabella's tone was scathing. "What would Father say?" "Father would care about her bank account, not her character. That's exactly why I don't take his advice anymore. Or yours." "Be reasonable," Isabella pleaded. "You need someone who understands our world. The Blackwell girl is perfect. Family. Money, social connections, the right education. I'm not discussing this further." Letitia backed away from the door, her hands shaking. She couldn't serve dinner now, not with this conversation fresh in her ears. She asked Mrs. Cooper to take over and fled to her room, where she sat on the edge of her bed, trying to make sense of her feelings. She'd known from the start that any attraction between them was impossible. Men like Henrico married women from their own social class. That was just how the world worked. And yet, his defense of her to Isabella had stirred something deep inside, a dangerous spark of hope. A soft knock on her door startled her. "Letitia!" It was Henrico's voice. "Are you all right?" She opened the door, conscious of her reddened eyes. "I'm fine. Just a headache." He clearly didn't believe her. "I apologize for my sister. She had no right to speak to you that way." "She's protective of you," Letitia said diplomatically. "She wants what's best for you." "She wants what she thinks is best," he corrected. "There's a difference." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "The dinner party next week," he said finally. "Would you help me plan it? Not as a servant, as my advisor. I trust your judgment." The request surprised her. "I don't know anything about fancy dinner parties. That's exactly why I'm asking you. I want something real, not another shallow society event." The way he looked at her made her heart skip. "All right," she agreed softly. "Thank you." He hesitated, then reached out and touched her cheek briefly. "Good night, Letitia." After he left, she touched the spot where his fingers had been, warmth spreading through her. She was falling for him, a man so far beyond her reach it was almost laughable, a man whose own sister couldn't even bear the thought of them together. "Be careful," she whispered to herself. "This can only end in heartbreak." The dinner party became Letitia's obsession over the next week. She transformed the formal dining room with candles and simple wildflowers from the estate grounds. Worked with Mrs. Cooper to create a menu featuring humble dishes elevated to gourmet status, recipes from both their mothers. Isabella called daily, pushing for caviar and champagne, insisting on formal place cards and elaborate centerpieces. Each time Henrico gently but firmly declined her suggestions. "This isn't a society showcase," he told his sister. "It's just dinner with friends." "Friends?" Isabella scoffed. "Since when do you have friends? These are business associates, Henrico. Potential investors. And the Blackwells are bringing their daughter specifically to meet you." Letitia pretended not to hear these conversations, but each one was a needle to her heart. On the evening of the dinner, she put on the only nice dress she owned, a simple blue sundress she'd bought on sale years ago for her brother's high school graduation. She'd be working, not attending as a guest, but still she wanted to look her best. As she helped Mrs. Cooper plate the appetizers, Henrico appeared in the kitchen doorway. He wore a suit that fit him perfectly, making him even more handsome than usual. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes taking her in. "It's just an old dress," she replied, smoothing the fabric self-consciously. "No," he stepped closer. "It's you that makes it beautiful." Mrs. Cooper cleared her throat loudly. "The guests will be arriving any minute, Mr. Duarte." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on Letitia. "Will you check if the wine is properly chilled?" In the dining room, Letitia was arranging the wine glasses when Isabella entered, resplendent in a designer gown. "What are you wearing?" she demanded, eyeing Letitia's dress with disdain. "My uniform is being cleaned," Letitia replied calmly. "Make sure you stay in the kitchen once guests arrive," Isabella said. "I don't want the help parading around in party clothes." Letitia's cheeks burned, but she kept her composure. "Of course, Ms. Duarte." The doorbell rang and the first guests arrived, a middle-aged couple Letitia recognized as prominent vineyard owners from the valley. Soon the house was filled with the murmur of conversation and the clink of glasses. From the kitchen doorway, Letitia watched as Henrico greeted each guest warmly. He looked every inch the wealthy landowner, perfectly at ease in this world of privilege. Then she saw her, the Blackwell daughter, tall, blonde, and impeccably dressed in a gown that probably cost more than Letitia earned in 6 months. Isabella immediately ushered the young woman to Henrico's side, her intentions transparent. "That's Vanessa Blackwell," Mrs. Cooper whispered, appearing at Letitia's side. "Old money, Ivy League education, and about as warm as a January frost." Letitia watched as Henrico chatted politely with Vanessa. Though his smile didn't reach his eyes, they made a striking couple, both wealthy, both beautiful. "They look right together," Letitia murmured. "Their appearances can be deceiving," Mrs. Cooper replied. "Now help me serve the first course." Throughout dinner, Letitia moved efficiently around the table, refilling glasses and serving food. She could feel Isabella watching her like a hawk, ready to pounce on any mistake. But it was Henrico's gaze she felt most keenly, finding her across the room, lingering when she leaned past him to serve. As she cleared the main course plates, she overheard Vanessa's perfectly modulated voice. "Your home is lovely, Henrico, but it needs a woman's touch. These centerpieces, for instance, wildflowers, a bit rustic, don't you think?" "I find them charming," Henrico replied. "They remind me of what's real." "Real?" Vanessa laughed lightly. "Darling, in our world, appearances are what matter." Letitia didn't hear his response as she returned to the kitchen, but the exchange left her more confused than ever. She didn't belong in Henrico's world. That much was clear. But sometimes, the way he looked at her made her wonder if he belonged in it either. After dessert was served, as the guests moved to the living room for coffee, Letitia slipped outside to catch her breath. The night air was cool against her flushed skin as she stood on the back patio, gazing up at the stars. "Escaping?" Henrico's voice came from behind her. She turned, startled. "Just getting some air. Mind if I join you?" He didn't wait for an answer, moving to stand beside her at the railing. "Thank you for tonight. The dinner was perfect." "Your guests seem pleased," she said carefully. "Especially Miss Blackwell." "Vanessa," he grimaced. Another of Isabella's matchmaking attempts. "She's beautiful," Letitia said, hating the jealousy that colored her voice. "She's exactly what my father would have wanted for me," he agreed. "Wealthy, well-connected, perfectly trained in the art of being the perfect society wife." He turned to face her. "And I've never been more bored in my life. Henrico, do you know what I keep thinking about? That first day you came here. You shook my hand and looked me straight in the eye. Not at my money, not at my name, at me." He moved closer. "No one does that, Letitia. No one sees me, just what I can give them. I prefer respect to money," she said softly, echoing words she'd said weeks ago. "Money disappears, words don't, I remember," he murmured. His hand came up to touch her cheek, and this time he didn't pull away. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." Her heart thundered in her chest. "This is a mistake. I work for you. I'm not from your world. Maybe I don't want that world anymore." His voice was low, intense. "Maybe what I want is right here." He leaned down, his intention clear, and despite every warning bell in her mind, Letitia found herself meeting him halfway. His lips touched hers, gentle at first, then with growing urgency. She felt herself responding, arms wrapping around his, neck as he pulled her closer. "Henrico?" Isabella's voice cut through the moment like ice water. "What on earth are you doing?" They broke apart, Letitia stepping back quickly. Isabella stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. "The guests are asking for you," she said tightly, "and you're out here with the help." "Isabella, enough," Henrico warned, but his sister wasn't finished. She turned her venomous gaze on Letitia. "I should have known. How long have you been seducing my brother? Is this how you plan to move up in the world? Trading on your looks? To snag a rich man? That's not," Letitia began, but Isabella cut her off. "Do you think you're the first pretty maid to set her sights on a wealthy employer? Please, it's the oldest trick in the book." "Stop it," Henrico said, his voice dangerous. "You've crossed a line." "I've crossed a line?" Isabella laughed bitterly. "You're the one kissing the help while a perfectly suitable woman waits inside." Letitia felt sick. Every fear, every doubt she'd had about her feelings for Henrico rushed back, amplified by Isabella's cruel words. Without a word, she pushed past them both and hurried toward her room. "Letitia, wait," Henrico called after her. But she didn't stop. She couldn't bear to see the pity in his eyes, or worse, the realization that his sister was right. That whatever was happening between them was just a momentary madness, a fantasy that could never survive in the real world. In her room, she began throwing her few belongings into her suitcase. She couldn't stay, not after this. Not when her heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one cutting deeper than the last. A knock came at her door. "Letitia, please." Henrico's voice was strained. "Let me explain." She opened the door but kept her distance. "There's nothing to explain, Mr. Duarte. Your sister is right. This was a mistake." Don't call me that, he said. Not after everything. What is everything? She asked, her voice breaking. A few conversations, a kiss. That's not enough to bridge worlds as different as ours. It could be if you'd give it a chance. He stepped into the room, his eyes pleading. I don't care about the differences, but I do, she interrupted. I won't be another charity case, another project for a bored rich man. I won't be someone your family sneers at, someone you have to defend. Is that what you think this is? He asked, hurt evident in his voice. Letitia swallowed hard. I don't know what this is, but I know I can't stay here and find out. She zipped her suitcase closed with finality. I'm leaving in the morning. Please don't go, he said softly. Not like this. I have to, she replied, tears filling her eyes. I don't have a price, Henrico. I'm not for sale. And if you doubted that for even a second, I've already lost you. He stared at her, stricken. Then, without another word, he turned and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Letitia sank onto the bed, finally letting the tears come. Outside, she could hear the dinner party continuing. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses. A world she'd briefly touched, but could never truly enter. By morning, she'd be gone, taking nothing from Uro Bravo but memories, and a heart far more damaged than when she arrived. Letitia left Uro Bravo Farm at dawn, before the household stirred. Only Mrs. Cooper was awake, waiting in the kitchen with a thermos of coffee and a sad smile. You don't have to go, the older woman said, pressing the thermos into Letitia's hands. I do. Letitia's voice was raw from a night of tears. Please tell Mr. Duarte I appreciate the opportunity he gave me. Tell him yourself. Mrs. Cooper nodded toward the doorway. Henrico stood there, unshaven and bleary-eyed, as if he hadn't slept. How you're really leaving? It wasn't a question, but Letitia answered anyway. Yes, at least let me drive you. The bus is fine. Letitia, please, she interrupted, her resolve threatening to crumble. Don't make this harder. Mrs. Cooper tactfully slipped out, leaving them alone in the kitchen's morning shadows. I fired Isabella from her position at the company, Henrico said abruptly. Letitia blinked in surprise. What, why? She crossed a line last night, many lines. His jaw tightened. No one speaks to you that way, no one. She's your sister, and you're... He stopped, searching for words. You're important to me. The simple statement hung in the air between them, heavy with everything unsaid. I have to go, Letitia whispered, afraid to stay a moment longer, afraid her heart might betray her mind's decision. Where will you go? My friend Anna has a spare room. I'll stay there until I find another job. Henrico stepped closer, his eyes pleading. This is your home. No, she said softly. This is your home. I just worked here. Before he could respond, she turned and walked out the door, not daring to look back. If she saw the pain in his eyes, she might never leave. The bus ride to town was a blur. Letitia stared out the window as Uro Bravo disappeared behind her, its vineyards fading into the distance like a beautiful dream. By noon, she was settled in Anna's small apartment above the diner where her friend worked. So you fell for your rich boss, Anna said, as they sat drinking coffee that evening. Girl, that's straight out of a romance novel. It wasn't like that, Letitia protested. He's not just some rich guy, he's different. Different enough to marry the housekeeper? Anna raised an eyebrow. Men like that don't cross class lines, Letty. They might play around, but when it comes to marriage, they stick to their own kind. Henrico's not like that, Letitia insisted, then sighed. But it doesn't matter. It could never work. Because of his witch of a sister. Because we come from different worlds. Letitia stirred her coffee absently. What would I do at his fancy parties? How would I talk to his business friends? I'd be a joke. Or maybe you'd be exactly what they all need. Someone real in a world of fakes. Anna squeezed her friend's hand. Anyway, I got you an interview at the diner. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills. Thanks. Letitia tried to sound grateful, but her heart wasn't in it. She'd come to Uro Bravo desperate for any job. She'd left with so much more to lose. 1 week turned into 2. Letitia took the job at the diner, serving breakfast and lunch to locals and the occasional tourist passing through. The work was honest, but exhausting. The pay barely enough to cover her share of rent and send a little to her brothers. She tried not to think about Henrico, about the grand house on the hill, about the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. But at night, alone in Anna's spare room, memories flooded back with painful clarity. "Table 7 needs more coffee," Anna called one morning, jolting Letitia from her thoughts. As she approached the table with the coffee pot, she nearly dropped it in shock. Mrs. Cooper sat there, hands folded primly on the formica tabletop. "Mrs. Cooper, what are you doing here?" The older woman smiled. "Checking on you, of course, and having what passes for breakfast in this town." She gestured to her half-eaten omelette. "The food is enthusiastic, if not refined." Despite everything, Letitia laughed. "How did you find me?" "Small towns have big mouths, dear." Mrs. Cooper's expression grew serious. "He's a mess without you." Letitia's smile faded. "Please don't. The house is falling apart. He fired the new housekeeper after 3 days. Won't eat, barely sleeps." Mrs. Cooper leaned forward. "He's planning to sell Uro Bravo." "What?" "But he loves that place. It's been in his family for generations." "The land, yes, the house." Mrs. Cooper shrugged. "He says it doesn't feel like home anymore." Letitia's heart twisted painfully. "That's not my problem, isn't it?" Mrs. Cooper reached for her purse. "One more thing. He's been meeting with lawyers, restructuring the company, cutting Isabella out completely. He shouldn't do that. She's family. So were you, in a way." Mrs. Cooper stood and placed a generous tip on the table. "He's at the Riverside Hotel for the next 2 days. Room 312, just in case you wanted to know." Before Letitia could respond, the older woman was gone, leaving her standing with a coffee pot and a heart full of confusion. "So who was that?" Anna asked, appearing at her side. "The cook from Uro Bravo." Letitia set down the pot with shaking hands. "She says Henrico is at the Riverside Hotel." "And?" Anna prompted. "And nothing. It's over." But all day, as she served plates and wiped tables, Letitia couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Cooper's words. Was Henrico really planning to sell his beloved home? Had he really cut ties with his sister? And why was he staying at a hotel in town when his estate was just a short drive away? By the end of her shift, she'd made up her mind. She would see him just once to make sure he was okay, to convince him not to sell his home or disown his sister. After that, she'd walk away for good. The Riverside Hotel was the nicest in town, which wasn't saying much. Its faded grandeur spoke of better days, but it still maintained a certain dignity. Letitia felt out of place in her waitress uniform as she approached the front desk. "I need to see Henrico Duarte," she said, summoning her courage. "Room 312. The clerk eyed her suspiciously. "Does Mr. Duarte know you're coming?" "No, but I can call up if you'd like," he offered, reaching for the phone. "That won't be necessary, Frank." Henrico's voice came from behind her. Letitia turned to find him standing there, looking thinner than she remembered, dark circles under his eyes. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down, but still managed to look impossibly handsome. "Letitia," he said her name like a prayer. "You're here." "Mrs. Cooper told me where to find you," she explained, suddenly uncertain. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." A small sad smile touched his lips. "I'm not, but I'm better now." The clerk tactfully busied himself with paperwork as Henrico led Letitia to a quiet corner of the lobby. "Why are you staying here?" she asked. "Why? Not at home?" "I couldn't be there anymore." His gaze held hers. "Not without you." The simple honesty of his words stole her breath. "Mrs. Cooper says you're selling Uro Bravo. You can't do that, Henrico. It's your heritage. What good is a house that feels empty? What good is land without someone to share it with? What about Isabella? She's your sister. You can't cut her out of the company." He looked surprised. "You're defending her? After everything she said to you?" "Family is family," Letitia said firmly. "If my brothers hurt me, I'd forgive them. That's what family does." Henrico studied her for a long moment. "You're remarkable, you know that. After all Isabella did, you still care about her well-being." I care about yours, Letitia corrected. And I know you'd regret it someday. Maybe. He rubbed his face wearily. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past weeks. About what I want. About what matters. And what did you decide? That I was right that first day. His eyes held hers, steadily. Everyone does have a price except you. Letitia's heart skipped. What do you mean? I've been surrounded by people who want something from me my entire life. My father wanted me to be his legacy. Isabella wants me to be her ticket to social status. Even Vanessa Blackwell, she wants my name, my money, my connections. He leaned closer. But you? You walked away from it all. From a comfortable job, from financial security, from me. Because your pride and self-respect mattered more. It wasn't easy, she admitted softly. I know. He reached for her hand, tentative, as if afraid she'd pull away. I've missed you every day, every hour. She allowed her fingers to twine with his, the contact sending electricity up her arm. I've missed you too. Come back, he said simply. Not as my housekeeper, not as my employee, just come back. To what, Enrico? She asked, the question that had haunted her for weeks finally spoken aloud. What would I be to you? Before he could answer, a commotion at the front entrance caught their attention. Isabella stormed in, spotting them immediately. So this is why you've been ignoring my calls, she snapped, marching toward them. You're still chasing after her. Letitia tried to pull her hand from Enrico's, but he held firm. Isabella, this isn't the place, he warned. Where is the place, Enrico? You've locked me out of the house, out of the company. Your own sister. Isabella's voice rose, drawing stares from other hotel guests. And all because of her. No, Enrico said calmly. All because of you. Because you thought your brother's happiness was less important than social appearances. You can't possibly be happy with her, Isabella insisted. She's a nobody. She cleans houses for a living. And she has more class in her little finger than you've shown in your entire life. Enrico's tone was cold. Now leave before you embarrass yourself further. Isabella turned to Letitia, her eyes blazing. How much? How much to make you disappear from my brother's life? Name your price. Letitia felt as if she'd been slapped. Excuse me. Everyone has a price, Isabella said dismissively. What's yours, 10,000, 20? I have a checkbook right here. No, Letitia said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the anger coursing through her. I don't have a price. I'm not for sale. I never was. Everyone is for sale, Isabella insisted, pulling out her checkbook. 50,000. That would change your life, wouldn't it? Set up those brothers of yours in style. Enrico stepped forward, but Letitia placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. You still don't understand, she told Isabella. Money isn't everything. It can't buy respect or love. Love? Isabella laughed harshly. Is that what you think this is? He's slumming, sweetie. He'll get tired of you once the novelty wears off. That's enough, Enrico's voice thundered through the lobby. Get out. Isabella, now. Something in his tone finally penetrated his sister's rage. She looked between them, saw their joined hands, the fierce protectiveness in her brother's stance, and for a moment, uncertainty flashed in her eyes. You really care about her, she said, more statement than question. More than you can understand, he replied. Isabella's shoulders slumped slightly. You're making a mistake, one you'll regret. The only mistake I made was letting you dictate my life for too long. Enrico's voice softened slightly. I'll always be your brother, Isabella, but I need to live my own life. For a moment it seemed Isabella might argue further. Instead, she closed her checkbook with a snap and turned on her heel, dignity intact as she swept out of the hotel. In the aftermath of her departure, Letitia realized the entire lobby had gone quiet, all eyes on them. We should go somewhere more private, she murmured. Enrico nodded, leading her to the elevator. They rode in silence to the third floor, neither speaking until they were inside his hotel room, a modest suite with a small sitting area. I'm sorry about Isabella, he said, once the door closed behind them. She's always thought money could solve any problem. It's not your fault. Letitia moved to the window, looking out at the town below. But she's right about one thing. I don't belong in your world, Enrico. Then I'll leave it, he said simply. She turned to him in shock. What? If my world doesn't have a place for you, then it's not a world I want to be part of. He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who measured worth in dollars. Then you came along and showed me there are things money can't buy. Integrity, kindness, genuine connection. You can't just walk away from everything, she protested. I'm not walking away from anything that matters. His hands framed her face gently. The only thing that matters is standing right here. Letitia's heart hammered against her ribs. What? Are you saying? I'm saying I love you, Leticia Martinez. Not because you clean my house or cook my meals, not because you're beautiful, though you are. I love you because you see me, the real me, and you still care. Tears filled her eyes. I love you too, she whispered, but loving someone isn't always enough. It is if you're brave enough to fight for it. He pressed his forehead to hers. I've been hiding at Uro Bravo, afraid to trust, afraid to feel. You changed that. You made that house a home again. And now you want to sell it? I thought I did, because without you there, it's just walls and memories. He pulled back to look into her eyes. But if you came back, not as my employee, but as my partner, it could be a home again, our home. Letitia's breath caught. What exactly are you asking me? In response, Enrico reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn velvet box. I've been carrying this around for days, trying to find the courage to look for you. He opened it to reveal a simple but beautiful ring, a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. It was my mother's. She said it reminded her that true beauty often comes from struggle. Letitia stared at the ring, then at him, unable to speak. I'm not asking because you're convenient or because I'm lonely, he continued. I'm asking because the thought of spending another day without you makes me feel hollow inside. He took her hand. Marry me, Letitia. Not tomorrow, not next week, when you're ready, when you believe that what I feel for you is real. What about your sister? Your friends? What will they think? I don't care, he said simply. The only opinion that matters to me is yours. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm scared, Enrico. What if this is a mistake? What if we're too different? What if we're exactly what each other needs? He countered. You said once that you prefer respect to money. That money disappears, but words remain. I'm giving you both my word and everything I am. The sincerity in his eyes was her undoing. All the walls she'd built, all the reasons she'd created for why they couldn't be together, crumbled in the face of his unwavering certainty. Yes, she whispered, and then louder. Yes, I'll marry you. When we're ready. When we're sure. Joy transformed his face as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, he pressed his forehead to hers once more. Come back. To Uro Bravo with me? Not as your housekeeper, she warned. Never again, he smiled. Though I wouldn't object if you wanted to tell Mrs. Cooper how to make that chicken dish I like. Letitia laughed, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. I think we can arrange that. Outside the hotel window, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing the town in golden light. It wasn't going to be easy, she knew that. Isabella wouldn't accept her overnight. Society would whisper. There would be hard days ahead, but as Enrico held her close, his heartbeat strong and steady against her cheek, Letitia knew one thing with absolute certainty. Some things were worth fighting for. And their love, unexpected, challenging, real, was at the top of that list. Let's go home, she said softly. Enrico's smile was all the answer she needed. The next morning, they drove back to Uro Bravo farm together. As the familiar landscape came into view, rolling vineyards giving way to pastures, the grand white house on the hill, Leticia felt a mixture of emotions. Joy, nervousness, determination. Mrs. Cooper will be ecstatic, Enrico said, glancing at her with a smile. She's been miserable without you. Only Mrs. Cooper, Leticia teased. Well, the houseplants haven't been doing so well either, she laughed, the sound carrying away the last of her doubts. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As Henrico turned up the long drive to the house, however, Letitia spotted an unfamiliar car parked out front. "Are you expecting someone?" His expression darkened. "No, that's Isabella's car." They exchanged concerned glances as they pulled up to the house. Before they could even get out of the car, the front door opened and Isabella emerged, followed by Mrs. Cooper. "Brace yourself," Henrico murmured, squeezing Letitia's hand before they stepped out to face his sister. Isabella looked different somehow, less polished, more human. Her usual perfect appearance showed signs of strain, her hair pulled back simply, her eyes tired. "You're back," she said, her gaze moving from her brother to Letitia, lingering on their joined hands. "Yes," Henrico replied, his tone cautious. "What are you doing here, Isabella?" Mrs. Cooper stepped forward. "Miss Duarte arrived early this morning. We've been talking." Isabella cleared her throat. "I came to apologize, to both of you." Letitia couldn't hide her surprise. "Apologize?" "Last night, after I left the hotel, I drove around for hours thinking." Isabella's voice was uncharacteristically humble. "About father, about our family, about what you said, Henrico." She took a deep breath. "You're right. I've been controlling and judgmental. I thought I knew what was best for you, for our name." Henrico's stance softened slightly. "And now?" "Now I realize I've been wrong." Isabella's gaze shifted to Letitia. "I treated you terribly, said unforgivable things. I was so focused on status and appearances that I couldn't see what was right in front of me, that my brother is happier with you than I've seen him in years." "Thank you," Letitia said quietly, unsure what else to say. "Mrs. Cooper helped me understand some things this morning," Isabella continued. "About family, about what really matters." She gestured to the house behind her. "This place felt like a museum after Mother died, cold, lifeless. Until you came, Letitia. You brought warmth back to Uro Bravo and to my brother." Henrico looked stunned by his sister's words. "Isabella, I'm not asking for forgiveness," she interrupted. "Not yet. I need to earn that. But I am asking for a chance to try." Her eyes fell to Letitia's hand, where her mother's ring now rested. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, quickly controlled. "I see Mother's ring found its rightful place." "Isabella," Henrico began, clearly expecting an objection. "It suits her," Isabella said simply. Mother would have approved. The tension in Henrico's shoulders eased visibly. Yes, she would have. An awkward silence fell between them. "Well," Isabella said finally, "I should go. Let you two settle in." She hesitated, then added, "Unless you'd like me to stay? For lunch, perhaps? If that's not too much to ask." Letitia felt Henrico looking at her, deferring to her judgment. In that moment, she knew their relationship had truly changed. They were partners now, equals in all things. "I'd like that," Letitia said, surprising herself with the genuine warmth in her voice. "I think Mrs. Cooper mentioned something about making her famous pot roast." Mrs. Cooper beamed. "Already in the oven, dear. I had a feeling we might be celebrating today." As they walked toward the house, a house that now felt truly like home, Letitia felt Henrico's arm slip around her waist, solid and reassuring. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more doubts, more hurdles to overcome. But for the first time since she'd arrived at Uro Bravo Farm with nothing but a simple resume and tired eyes, Letitia allowed herself to believe in a future brighter than any she'd dared to imagine. A future where love, true, honest, real love, was worth more than all the gold in the world. 6 months had passed since Letitia returned to Uro Bravo Farm, not as a housekeeper, but as the woman who had captured Henrico Duarte's heart. Spring had given way to summer, and now autumn painted the vineyards in shades of gold and crimson. The harvest was in full swing, with workers moving through the rows of grapevines, their laughter carrying on the warm breeze. Letitia stood on the front porch of the main house, watching the activity with a content smile. So much had changed in half a year, yet some things remained wonderfully the same. The beauty of the land, the rhythm of farm life, and the growing love between her and Henrico. "Penny, for your thoughts," Mrs. Cooper said, joining her with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "Just thinking about how different everything is now," Letitia admitted, accepting the mug gratefully. "A year ago, I was struggling to pay rent and put my brothers through school. Now you're about to become Mrs. Duarte," Mrs. Cooper finished, her eyes twinkling. "In 3 days, to be exact." The wedding was set for Saturday, a small ceremony, in the garden where Leticia had restored Henrico's mother's roses. Only close friends and family would attend. No society photographers, no business associates, none of the pomp that Isabella had once insisted was necessary for a Duarte wedding. "I still can't believe it sometimes," Leticia confessed. "Part of me keeps waiting to wake up and find myself back in that tiny apartment, rushing to catch the bus for my morning shift." "Well, believe it," Mrs. Cooper said firmly. "That young man in there has never been happier." She nodded toward the house where Henrico was on a business call in his office. "And neither, I suspect, have you." Leticia couldn't deny it. The past months had been the happiest of her life, though not without challenges. Learning to navigate her new role, not quite the lady of the house yet, but certainly not the help, had been an adjustment. Some of Henrico's business associates had been coldly polite at best, openly condescending at worst. Isabella, though making efforts to be supportive, still occasionally slipped into moments of patronizing behavior, but through it all, Henrico had remained steadfast. He'd introduced her proudly at every function, his hand warm and secure at the small of her back. When an important client had made a snide comment about marrying beneath his station, Henrico had calmly ended their business relationship on the spot. "I'm marrying the woman I love," he'd told Leticia later that night as they sat beneath the stars on their favorite part of the porch. "Anyone who can't respect that doesn't deserve to be part of our lives." Our lives. How natural those words sounded now. The sound of tires on gravel pulled Leticia from her memories. A taxi was coming up the drive, and her heart leaped with anticipation. "They're here," she exclaimed, setting down her coffee mug and hurrying down the steps. The taxi came to a stop and 2 young men emerged, Miguel and Rafael, her brothers, home from college for the wedding. Miguel, now 22, and in his final year of engineering, school had filled out into a handsome young man. Rafael, 20 and studying pre-med, was taller and lankier, his smile as bright as ever. "Letty," they called in unison, rushing to embrace her. Leticia hugged them fiercely, tears of joy springing to her eyes. "I've missed you both so much." "Not as much as we've missed your cooking," Rafael teased, pulling back to look at her. "You look different." "Sis, happy. I am happy," she assured him. Miguel glanced up at the grand house with a low whistle. "Still can't believe my sister is marrying the owner of all this. When you sent us to college, I thought you'd be working double shifts forever." "I would have," Leticia said honestly, "for both of you." "Well, thank God you don't have to anymore," Rafael said, slinging an arm around her shoulders. "Though gotta admit it's weird having my tuition paid by my future brother-in-law," Henrico insisted. Leticia reminded him. "And it's still my family, my responsibility." "Speaking of Henrico," Miguel asked, looking around, "where is the man who stole our sister's heart?" As if on cue, the front door opened and Henrico appeared, his face breaking into a warm smile at the sight of Leticia's brothers. He'd met them only once before during a brief weekend visit, but he'd made an immediate effort to know them, to understand the 2 people who meant everything to Leticia. "Miguel, Rafael," he called, coming down to join them. "Welcome to Uro Bravo." Henrico shook hands with both young men, then helped the taxi driver with their luggage. The easy way he interacted with her brothers, not as a wealthy benefactor but as family, made Leticia's heart swell with love. This was the man she was marrying. Not his money, not his name, but him, with his quiet strength and genuine heart. "Mrs. Cooper has lunch waiting," Henrico told them, leading the way back to the house. "And then I thought I might show you around the property. There's a great fishing spot by the creek that I think you'll enjoy, Rafael." As the men chatted heading inside, Leticia hung back a moment watching them. Her family, the brothers she'd raised and the man she loved, walking together into the home they would all share. It felt right in a way she couldn't put into words. Phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Isabella. "Final dress fitting at 3. Don't be late, Letitia smiled. Isabella's transformation over the past months had been remarkable. After her initial apology, Enrico's sister had made genuine efforts to accept Letitia. There had been missteps and uncomfortable moments, but also growth. When Letitia had hesitantly asked Isabella to be her maid of honor, an olive branch she wasn't sure would be accepted, Isabella had burst into tears and hugged her. "I don't deserve it," she'd said, "but I promise I'll make you proud." And she had. Isabella had thrown herself into wedding preparations with the same intensity she once directed at keeping them apart. She'd respected Letitia's wishes for a small, intimate ceremony, even when her society friends expressed surprise at the modest plans. And when one of those friends had made a disparaging comment about Letitia's background, Isabella had shut her down immediately. "My brother is marrying an extraordinary woman," she'd said, loudly enough for Letitia to overhear from the next room. "If you can't see that, then you're not half as smart as I thought you were." Progress, Letitia thought with a smile. Real progress. The day before the wedding dawned clear and beautiful. The gardens had been transformed with white wooden chairs, facing a simple arch, twined with roses from Enrico's mother's garden. Caterers bustled in and out of the kitchen, where Mrs. Cooper supervised with military precision. Letitia found herself with a rare quiet moment alone in the library, the room where she and Enrico had first begun to know each other, where he had asked about her dreams when no one else had bothered. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books he'd first lent her, remembering how carefully she'd read them, eager to discuss them with him. How far they'd come from those first tentative conversations. "There you are." Enrico's voice came from the doorway. Hiding from the wedding chaos, she turned to him with a smile. "Just taking a moment to breathe. Hard to believe that tomorrow." "Tomorrow you'll be my wife," he finished, crossing the room to take her hands in his. "The happiest day of my life." "Mine, too," she said softly. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his expression growing serious. "I have something for you. An early wedding gift." "Enrico, you've already given me so much. This is different," he interrupted gently. "Something I've been working on for months." He led her to the leather sofa and sat beside her, pulling an envelope from his pocket. "What is it?" she asked as he handed it to her. "Open it and see." Letitia carefully broke the seal and pulled out several official-looking documents. As she read the first page, her eyes widened in shock. "Enrico, this is a scholarship foundation," he confirmed. "The Leticia Martinez Education Fund for first-generation college students from working-class backgrounds, fully endowed and ready to award its first scholarships next fall." Tears filled her eyes as she read further. The foundation would provide full scholarships to 10 students each year, with preference given to those who had overcome significant hardship or had family responsibilities that delayed their education. "You always said that if circumstances had been different, you'd have studied literature," Enrico explained, his voice gentle. "I can't change your past, but maybe we can change the future for others like you. This is..." She struggled to find words. "The most meaningful gift anyone has ever given me." "There's more," he said, pointing to the last page. "Look at the board of directors." Letitia scanned the list of names. Hers was there, of course, as chairperson, but below it were others that made her breath catch. Her brothers, Miguel and Raphael, Mrs. Cooper, Anna from the diner, and most surprisingly, Isabella. "You made Isabella a board member?" she asked, astonished. Enrico nodded. "It was her idea, actually. She wants to help, to be part of something that matters to you." He squeezed her hand. "She's trying, Letitia. We all are. To build not just a marriage, but a family." Overwhelmed, Letitia wrapped her arms around him, burying her face against his chest. "I love you so much," she whispered. "And I love you," he murmured into her hair. "More than I ever thought possible." A discreet knock at the door interrupted their moment. Mrs. Cooper stood there, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but Ms. Duarte has arrived with the florist, and they're asking for Leticia's approval on the final arrangements." "Duty calls," Enrico said with a smile, helping Leticia to her feet. "Go. I'll see you at dinner." Letitia carefully folded the documents back into the envelope, holding it close as she followed Mrs. Cooper. This gift represented everything she loved about Enrico: his thoughtfulness, his understanding of what truly mattered to her, his desire to make a difference. Not with showy gestures or expensive presents, but with something meaningful and lasting. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of last-minute preparations. By evening, Letitia was exhausted but happy, surrounded by the people she loved most in the world. Her brothers entertained everyone with stories from college. Mrs. Cooper served a magnificent rehearsal dinner. Even Isabella seemed relaxed, laughing genuinely at Raphael's jokes. As tradition dictated, Letitia would spend her last night as a single woman apart from Henrico. Isabella had insisted on hosting a small gathering in the guest cottage, just Letitia herself, Anna from the diner, and Mrs. Cooper. No wild parties, Isabella had promised when Henrico looked skeptical. Just some girl time before the big day. Now, as the four women sat in the cozy living room of the cottage, sharing wine and stories, Letitia marveled at how life could change so completely. A year ago, she wouldn't have believed any of this possible. "A toast," Isabella said, raising her glass, "to my future sister-in-law, who taught me that true worth has nothing to do with bank accounts." She smiled at Letitia, genuine warmth in her eyes. "You're the best thing that ever happened to my brother, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." To Letitia, the others echoed, raising their glasses. "And to all of you," Letitia added, "for believing in fairy tales." "Not a fairy tale, dear," Mrs. Cooper corrected gently. "Just life as it should be, where good hearts find each other, no matter the circumstances." Later, as Letitia stood alone on the cottage porch, looking up at the star-filled sky, she heard footsteps behind her. Isabella joined her at the railing, both women silent for a moment, taking in the beauty of the autumn night. "I never properly apologized," Isabella said finally, "for offering you that check at the hotel. It was unforgivable. But I have forgiven you," Letitia replied. "We all make mistakes." "Not like that." Isabella shook her head. "I was so obsessed with status, with what people would think. I couldn't see what was right in front of me, that my brother had found something real in a world of pretense." Letitia turned to look at her future sister-in-law. "What changed your mind?" "Seeing him without you," Isabella admitted. "I've never seen Henrico so broken. And then watching you refuse that check, refuse money that could have changed your life, I realized you truly loved him. Not his fortune, not his name, him." She smiled ruefully. "That's rare in our world, Letitia, rarer than you know." "I never wanted his money," Letitia said softly. "Only his heart. And you have it. Completely." Isabella hesitated, then added, "Our mother would have adored you, you know. She was like you in many ways, saw the person, not the position." It was perhaps the highest compliment Isabella could have paid her, and Letitia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for saying that." Isabella squeezed her hand. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day." Wedding day dawned with a gentle mist that burned away to reveal a perfect blue sky. A good omen, according to Mrs. Cooper. By noon, Letitia was in Isabella's capable hands, being helped into her wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown of ivory satin that flowed to the floor in clean lines. "Something old," Isabella said, fastening a delicate pearl bracelet around Letitia's wrist. "It was our grandmother's." "Isabella, I can't—" "You can and you will," Isabella insisted. "You're family now." Letitia's brothers arrived to escort her down the aisle, both handsome in their suits, both struggling to hide their emotion at seeing their sister as a bride. "Mom would be so proud," Miguel said, his voice thick. "Of everything you've done, everything you are." "She's watching," Letitia whispered. "I can feel it." When the moment finally arrived, Letitia walked between her brothers toward the rose-covered arch where Henrico waited. The small gathering of guests, mostly staff from the farm and a few close friends, turned to watch her approach. But Letitia saw only Henrico, his eyes filled with such love that it nearly took her breath away. As her brothers placed her hand in Henrico's, Miguel whispered, "Take care of our sister." "With everything I am," Henrico promised. The ceremony was simple, but deeply moving. They exchanged traditional vows, their voices clear and sure. When Henrico slipped the wedding band onto her finger to join her engagement ring, he added words that weren't in the script. "With this ring, I give you my heart, my trust, and my deepest respect," he said. "Everything I am and everything I have is yours, not because you ask for it, but because you never did." Tears slipped down Leticia's cheeks as she repeated similar words to him, thanking him for seeing her, truly seeing her, when others had looked past her. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in cheers. Mrs. Cooper dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Isabella beamed with genuine happiness. Leticia's brothers whistled and applauded. At the reception, held on the lawn under a white tent, Henrico pulled his new wife close for their first dance. As they swayed to the music, he whispered in her ear, "Happy?" "More than I ever dreamed possible," she replied honestly. "There's one more surprise," he told her, "after everyone leaves." The celebration continued into the evening, intimate and joyful. Speeches were given, Miguel telling embarrassing stories about his sister's determination to keep them in line, Isabella admitting how wrong she'd been and how grateful she was to have Leticia in their family. When it was Henrico's turn, he kept it simple. "All my life I had everything money could buy," he said, raising his glass to Leticia. "But I never had enough until I found the one thing money couldn't buy, a woman who loved me for myself, who taught me that true wealth isn't in bank accounts, but in connections that can't be measured. To my wife, who gave me everything by wanting nothing." As the last guest departed and twilight settled over Uro Bravo, Henrico led Leticia by the hand toward the back of the property, away from the main house. "Where are we going?" she asked, curious. "You'll see." They walked along a path lined with lanterns until they reached a clearing where a small cottage stood, a charming stone structure with a red door and climbing roses around the windows. Leticia had seen it before, of course, but it had been abandoned and in disrepair. Now it glowed with warm light from within, completely restored to picture-perfect condition. "What is this?" she asked, as Henrico led her to the door. "Our home," he said simply. "If you want it." Confused, she allowed him to guide her inside. The interior was cozy and welcoming, a small living room with comfortable furniture, a kitchen with modern appliances but a rustic feel, and glimpses of a bedroom beyond. "I don't understand," she said. "The main house will always be there," he finished. "For entertaining, for family gatherings, for Isabella when she visits, but this," he gestured around them, "this is just for us. No history, no ghosts, no expectations. A place where we're simply Henrico and Leticia, not the Duartes of Uro Bravo." Understanding dawned, and with it a rush of love so powerful it nearly overwhelmed her. He was giving her a fresh start, a home that was truly theirs, not a place where she had once worked and he had once been alone. "I had the workers restore it while you were busy with wedding plans," he explained. "Mrs. Cooper helped with the furnishings. Do you like it?" "Like it," Leticia whispered, taking in the thoughtful details, books she loved on the shelves, a small desk by the window where she could write, photographs of her family in simple frames. "Henrico, it's perfect." "There's one more thing," he said, leading her to a door she hadn't noticed. He opened it to reveal a small room with empty bookshelves and a reading nook. "For your library. You said once that if you could have studied anything, it would have been literature. So I thought maybe now." He hesitated, suddenly uncertain. "If you wanted to take some classes at the community college, or just read and write." Leticia couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Instead, she threw her arms around his neck, hoping he could feel what she couldn't express. The depths of her gratitude, her love, her certainty that she had found the rarest of treasures in him. "I take it you approve," he murmured against her hair, holding her close. "It's the second most beautiful gift you've ever given me," she managed. "And the first?" She pulled back to look into his eyes. "Your heart, your trust, the belief that I was more than what I seemed." "Oh, you always were," he said softly. "I just had the good fortune to see it." He touched her cheek gently. "You know, my father always said the Duarte wealth came from knowing the value of things. He meant land, property, investments. But I think the real wealth was finding you, the one thing money couldn't buy." As the stars came out over Uro Bravo, Leticia and Henrico stood together on the porch of their cottage, arms around each other, looking out over the land that had brought them together. In the distance, lights glowed in the main house where their family would always be welcome. But here, in this small haven they would call their own, something new was beginning. "I love you, Mrs. Duarte," Henrico whispered. "And I love you," she replied, smiling up at him. "Not for your money, not for your name, but for me," he finished. "Just me. Just you," she agreed. "That's all I ever wanted." As they turned to enter their new home together, Leticia thought of her mother, who had worked so hard to give her children a better life. She thought of her long journey, the struggles, the sacrifice, the unexpected turns that had led her here to this moment of perfect happiness. She had come to Uro Bravo with nothing but a simple resume and tired eyes, looking only for a job. Instead, she had found the greatest treasure of all, a love that saw beyond appearances, beyond backgrounds, beyond everything but the truth of the heart. And in that love, both she and Henrico had finally found their home. The end.